They're acting like Timcast getting a press pass so that Elad can literally just say, Mr. Secretary, care to comment on the recent accusations made by the press so we can suss out some of their thoughts and views on things. They're acting like this is the apocalypse. Take a look at what the Washington Post writes. Nearly 1 week since a rash of Pentagon journalists turned in their press credentials after refusing to sign a new restrictive press policy, the Defense Department, you mean Department of War, announced a new, okay, hold on a minute. It's the Department of War. They changed the name. You can be mad about it, but they did. They announced a new media press corps largely hailing from right-wing outlets. The 60 people from various news organizations represent a broad spectrum of new media outlets and independent journalists. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell wrote in a statement Wednesday on X, adding that all of the publications agreed to the agency's press policy. According to a draft of the announcement obtained by the Washington Post ahead of Parnell's tweet, the coalition of signatories include the cable news network Real America's Voice, streaming service Lindell TV, the websites The Gateway Pundit, The Post Millennial, Human Events, The National Pulse, Red State. It includes Turning Point USA's media brand Frontlines, as well as influencer Tim Pool's Timcast, and a Substack-based newsletter called Washington Reporter. The memo said that many independent journalists also signed, but did not specify who they were. The Defense Department's policy blocks journalists from soliciting information the department has not authorized for release, even unclassified details, a major shift in press outreach from the organization. This is a gross exaggeration and manipulation over what is actually going on. Now, I will tell you our statement. You know, there's a bunch of journalists insulting me and ragging on us, and they're crying. Oh, and that shows you one thing. They were never journalists. They are partisan cultists. They are angry that we will not march in lockstep with their cult. This is very simple. We have never been to the Pentagon. I think actually a couple producers. Did you go, Tate? Mm. It was who went? Kellen and Sean. They went recently after an invite over how we could potentially interview people in the Department of War if we were to do a podcast. That was about it. Then all of this happened. That is the extent we've ever been there. Elad has a White House press credential so that he can go in the press briefing room and the Oval Office when able and ask questions. We are not investigative journalists to a certain degree. Maybe sometimes, Elad's going to dig into a story he might find some details on, but we don't dedicate our time to trying to uncover malfeasance and untoward behavior from corporations or government as investigators. I applaud all those who do. That work is tremendous. It's important. Fantastic. For what reason is it an affront to anyone that our organization said we would like to attend some press briefings to ask some questions, just like any other journalist who does? They're acting like the fact that we are there is they're insulting us over it. It's inane. And they're acting like something's wrong with journalism in the country because we requested a press pass. Isolate every news organization that they offered this to. First and foremost, the Pentagon offered everyone, every organization was afforded the exact same opportunity with their memorandum. These are just the organizations that looked it over and said, okay, I guess. And you'll notice, one thing you'll notice, it's not so much that they're conservative leaning, independent or otherwise. It's that these are organizations that typically did not get access to these institutions. Now, certainly, I think there are many people who are just going to pony up to Trump no matter what he does, and he's always right and always going to do right. He can never do wrong. I'm not going to play that game. I certainly have no problem criticizing Trump over the Epstein handling, nor Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, despite them being friends of the show. Criticism where criticism is due. I've levied some criticism at a lot of organizations on the right. This memo, we have pulled it up because the New York Times made it available. There's quite literally nothing, in my opinion, in here that is... I got to be honest. A lot of it is just parking. I'm not kidding. Press parking. Parking at the Pentagon reservation is restricted to vehicles permitted. And I'm reading through this and I'm like, oh, I just really don't care. I'm not going to park there. We'll get dropped off. We'll drop our equipment off, whatever. Filming and photography and audio recording at the Pentagon is prohibited unless approved in advance. This is true for, I think, every military installation. Mm-hmm. Here's the issue. These journalists that were in the Pentagon, they were not journalists. They were Mockingbird media. The reason why they didn't have any, they could do whatever they wanted was because there was no distinction between them and the administrations they worked under. It was all a handshake agreement, and we all know. They lied to they lied to the people. They're lying about this. Basically, what they're saying right now is this agreement forces you to say that you won't solicit information unless they approve of it. It says you won't solicit confidential, classified, or otherwise information and release it. Okay, let me just stress to everybody who's listening. You can turn in your press badge. That's it. So let's say you're at the Pentagon. You've got what's called the PFAC, the press pass that you applied for, and you stumble upon a story for which you're like, whoa, hold on. I can't believe what I'm hearing. The American people need to know this. And so here's a guy. You're like, tell me what's going on with this. Now, there are some questions. If you facilitate in any way the leaking of classified information, it's actually a crime. Journalists can receive the information, but there's questions over where the line is when they start to solicit that information. It actually becomes criminal. So in the event you find a story that is of massive, tremendous public knowledge, you already know about the story. You can ask for confirmation and details. That is not a crime. If the Pentagon has a problem with that, you can say, Mr. Hegseth, here's your press badge back. Adios. The issue at play here is they want to have their cake and eat it too. So I have a question. I mean, if there's an investigative journalist with no access to the Pentagon who works for Tate News Corp, and he's investigating the Pentagon, and then he goes to Elad from Timcast and says, take a look at this story that I've uncovered. What's stopping Elad from going, Mr. Secretary, we have a story that we got from Tate News Corp saying these things. They're fabricating a reason to storm out of the press, out of the Pentagon. And I think the real issue here, and I apologize for the long rant, but I think the real issue here is the media was Mockingbird. The Biden administration, the Obama administration, the media was the government. It was all part of the same manipulation. That's why they had free reign to do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. And now that Trump is in and they hate him and he represents a new system emerging and taking over, now the media says, quick, clear out, because it's a cult. The new organizations that come in, what do you do when you're at the Pentagon? Is it commonplace that journalists just constantly walk around the Pentagon saying, leak me information? No, it's about going to press briefings, having interviews, and getting quick access to people in government. You can ask them about stories that are in the public sphere. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you all agree, but that's my statement.
I mean, it seems like a very easy manipulation for people who don't understand the way that this aspect of government and media works, that it's a very easy story to frame for people that paints the new media, as they call it, in a specific light, while taking advantage of a layperson's understanding of how press briefings work or how media structure works. It really, if you're from an outsider looking in, it just looks like they don't like the idea of people that are outside of the club getting into the club.
Yeah, well,
that's right.
Yeah, and beyond that, I mean, the legacy media has an axe to grind with new media. So right off the rip, one side has a bone to pick with the other. So you're obviously going to get some ridiculous reporting. And yeah, I mean, even from the Pentagon's perspective, I mean, in the lead up to the story about the Pentagon media walkout, every article they were running was just these leaked characterizations from unnamed Pentagon officials. There was no documents. There was no nothing. So it's the Pentagon had holes to plug, obviously, because the media was just adversarial the entire time. So it's they're throwing a fit and they were adversarial the entire time. It's get lost. This is part of the reorientation towards new media, because that's just the more useful, that provides more utility for Americans, quite frankly.
In my perspective, it's a privilege, not a right, to be able to cover the White House, to be able to get into the Pentagon, to be able to ask questions at these briefings. As I understand, these journalists are used to trying to solicit information from Pentagon officials throughout the Pentagon, and they used to have the right to walk around the Pentagon building without an escort. I believe that's part of the rule change now, where they will be required to walk around with an escort and won't be able to freely try to solicit information from different Pentagon officials just throughout the building. It's fascinating, too, because the White House has these same rules. I can't la-di-da walk around any part of the White House. They have a specific area that the press is allowed into, a relatively small area. And then if you're ever trying to go anywhere extended beyond that, you have to be with somebody with your press pass present. If you're somewhere where you're not supposed to be, people will aggressively come up to you. Random White House people will be like, you need to be escorted here, or you're not allowed to be in this area. I think this is largely in an effort, though, from Pete Hegseth to prevent leaks and, these unfavorable reporting that we are seeing on the Pentagon through disgruntled employees at the Pentagon. There are a lot of people there who aren't happy with how Pete Hegseth has been running the show over there, and they want to, they have an axe to grind, and they'll grind that axe through the media. And Hegseth is trying to prevent that from occurring.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.